The machines are steady. That's the first thing Vanessa checks every morning, before the chart, before the 4-line, before she even sets down her coffee. The machines. Because in the ICU, steady machines mean a person is still choosing to be here, still fighting the war happening beneath their skin, still holding the thin wire between this world and whatever waits beyond it. Room 14's machines have been steady for 23 days. She pushes open the door with her shoulder, coffee in one hand, a worn copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God in the other. Morning light cuts through the half-open blinds in pale strips, falling across hands that look too still for a man who, according to every person who has ever whispered about him in hushed, slightly terrified tones, never stops moving. Taemin Han. She'd Googled him on day 3. Couldn't help it. When a man in a black suit appeared at the nurse's station and politely, the kind of polite that is not actually polite, the kind with a blade behind it, requested that Mr. Han's care team be limited to the most senior staff, she'd looked up from her tablet and said, "I'm his primary nurse and I'm 29, so that's going to be a problem for you." The suit had stepped aside. Then she'd Googled Han Industries, $5 billion in legitimate holdings across Seoul, New York, and Singapore. A face that belonged on the cover of a magazine. Severe and symmetric, cheekbones that made her blink twice at her phone screen, dark hair, the kind of jaw that had never in its life carried a smile it didn't mean. 42 years old, unmarried, no children on record, and then the other articles, 3 and 4 pages deep in the search results. A Seoul crime reporter who'd covered the Han family for 15 years and then abruptly stopped publishing. A shipping container investigation that got quietly buried. Photographs at government galas standing next to men who smiled too carefully. The phrase Han family operations appearing in federal documents that had been partially redacted. She'd put her phone down, looked at the door to room 14, and something she cannot explain. Something that lives below logic, below professional training, below the careful self she has built year by careful year, made her walk back through that door, sit in the chair beside his bed, and open her book. She tells herself it's compassion. Clinical compassion. His men stand outside. His lawyers call twice daily. Associates send flowers so expensive they make other nurses stop in the hallway and stare. But for the first 9 days, not one person sat beside him. Not one person spoke to him like he was still there. So she started reading. "I know you probably can't hear me," she'd told him on day 10, settling into the chair, opening to page 1. "And I know you're not exactly the Zora Neale Hurston type. But I have 40 minutes before my next round, and I am not spending it listening to Dr. Yoon talk about his boat again. So, here we are." She read 3 chapters that first night. Now she's on page 212. She settles into the chair in the usual ritual. Hook feet on the rung, shift the pillow behind her back, find the page. Glances at him out of habit. Pale. Still. The bruising along his jaw has faded from purple to yellow-green. His hair has grown enough to curl slightly at his temple, which feels like a small secret she has been accidentally keeping about a man who, she suspects, has no small secrets, only enormous ones. She clears her throat. Ships at a distance have every man's wish on board. She reads, her voice settling into the cadence she has built over 23 days, low, steady, real. For some they come in with the tide. For others they sail forever on the horizon. Never out of sight, never landing. She pauses, sips her coffee. "That's the opening," she says, like she always does when a line earns it. "That's one of the greatest first lines in the American literary canon, and I need you to appreciate it even if you're unconscious. I need that from you, Taemin." Silence. The machines breathe for him. She reads on. Page 212, 213. The scene where Janie finally speaks her truth, where all the silence she has been carrying breaks open into language. Vanessa's voice rises without meaning to, leaning into the rhythm of it, the pure rightness of a woman coming into herself on the page. She almost misses it. Almost. A sound. Low. Rough with weeks of disuse. Coming from the bed. She stops. Looks up. Taemin Han's eyes are open. Not flutter open. Not the half-consciousness she's seen twice before that faded back within minutes. Open. Dark. Fully present, focused on her, with an expression she has never in 6 years of nursing seen on a patient waking from a coma. Not confusion, not fear, recognition. Her training kicks in first, already reaching for the call button, already cataloging, Pupils equal and reactive, he's tracking movement, he's breathing. You, he says. The word is barely sound. But it is precise. She freezes. I know you. His eyes don't move from her face. Every word pulled from somewhere deep and fought for. From a swallow. From the dark. Mr. Han. She keeps her voice clinical even as something in her chest does something she will examine later when she is alone and has the luxury. You're at Mercy General Hospital in New York. You've been unconscious for 23 days. I'm your nurse. My name is Vanessa. You're safe. Don't try to talk yet. Vanessa. He says her name like he has said it before. Like it is not new in his mouth. His hand moves, slow, every millimeter costing him. Across the sheet toward her. Not grabbing. Not commanding. Just reaching the way someone reaches for something they are not sure is real. I heard you, he says. Every night. His eyes close briefly, then open again, fighting to stay present. You read to me. Ah yes, there's research that suggests auditory stimulation during. Janie. His voice is barely a thread but it is steady. She wanted a horizon. He breathes. You said the first line was perfect. His eyes find hers and hold them, and whatever lives inside that gaze makes her grip the book until her knuckles ache. You were right. Vanessa opens her mouth. Closes it. You're the woman from my dreams. Taemin Han whispers. The machines are steady. Everything else in Vanessa Carter's carefully ordered life is not. She does not tell anyone what he said. Not Dr. Yoon, who arrives 8 minutes later and speaks to Taemin in rapid clinical English while Taemin answers in the same, his voice gaining small degrees of strength like a signal finding its frequency. Not the suit. Mr. Kwan? She learns. Who steps into the room and goes utterly still when he sees his employer's open eyes, then steps back out and makes a phone call with hands that are not quite steady. Not Destiny, who texts at noon. How's our mystery man eyes and receives nothing back. Not her grandmother. Especially not her grandmother, who has a radar for exactly this kind of thing that Vanessa has never once in her life successfully evaded. She goes about her shift, checks room 14 at appropriate medical intervals, no more frequently than she checks anyone else. And if she is slightly more aware of his door than she would like to be, that is simply professional diligence, and anyone who suggests otherwise can mind their business. At 4 p.m., Taemin asks for her specifically. Mr. Kwan appears at the station with careful politeness. The real kind this time. She is starting to be able to tell the difference, and says, Mr. Han would like to speak with Nurse Carter. If she's available. She is available. She takes her time. She walks in at her own pace. He's been moved to sitting up, the bed angled, a pillow behind his head. Someone has brought him clothes. Actual clothes, a soft black shirt, nothing like the billionaire armor in his photographs, and he looks diminished by the hospital and somehow more real for it. Less monument. More man. He looks at her the same way he has since his eyes opened, like a fact he is confirming. You look like her, he says. Like who? The woman in the dark. He chooses words carefully, the habit of someone whose precision is professional. There was a place between here and wherever I was going. Not nothing. A place with a voice. He pauses. The voice stayed. When everything else went quiet, the voice stayed. Vanessa pulls the chair to its position. Sits. Looks at him directly. Taemin. First name deliberate. She needs him on equal ground. Not in the penthouse of his own mythology. What you're experiencing is a recognized phenomenon. Patients sometimes bond intensely with people present during. You told me about your grandmother, he says quietly. She stops. Sweet potato pie. First Sunday of every month. She saves you the corner piece because you're the only one who appreciates the caramelized edge. His voice is rough but his eyes are clear. You want to write a book one day. You're afraid it won't measure up to the ones you love. He breathes. You became a nurse because you watched your mother be treated without dignity in a hospital when you were 17, and you decided to be the person you wished had been there. The room is completely quiet. I know you, he says. Not from a medical phenomenon. Because you talked to me like I was worth talking to. Like I was still a person. Something moves across his face. Careful, like he is not accustomed to letting things move across it. Do you know how long it has been since someone treated me like a person and not a... He stops. She looks at him for a long moment. Get some rest, she says. Her voice is steady. She is absolutely fine. I'll come back at 7. With the book. With the book. She stands. Walks out. Stands in the hallway with her back against the wall and her eyes closed. Not doing anything dramatic. Simply breathing. Simply being a woman who has excellent professional boundaries and is not remotely affected by events. Mr. Kwan passes with a tablet. She opens her eyes. Straightens. Walks back to the station. On day 15, Mr. Kwan is waiting outside room 14 instead of inside it. That is new. He doesn't speak immediately, which means whatever he is about to say he has been organizing for a while. She waits. She has learned to read the architecture of this man's silences. There is something you should know, he says finally. Mr. Han wanted to tell you himself, but he asked me to tell you first, so you could decide how you want to receive it from him. She looks at him steadily. Tell me. The people responsible for Mr. Han's current condition are aware that he survived. Mr. Kwan's voice is professionally neutral in the way that requires active effort to maintain. They have been monitoring the hospital since day 4. Exits, entrances, staff rotations. He holds her gaze. You appear in their surveillance photographs, Nurse Carter. Multiple times. Your car has been noted. Your schedule has been noted. The hallway is very quiet. Vanessa breathes in. How long have you known this? She asks. 3 days. 3 days, she repeats. Mr. Han made the decision to manage my information, she says. Mr. Kwan does not answer, which is its own answer. She nods once. Then she pushes open the door. Taemin is awake. He has been awake. She can tell by the particular stillness of a man who has been waiting and trying not to look like it. He watches her walk in. Reads her face the way she has noticed he reads everything. Quickly, completely, without showing that he's doing it. You know, he says. You waited 3 days, she says. He doesn't look away. Yes. Why? A pause that costs him something visible. Because you sit beside me every night. Because you talk to me. Because he stops. The machines breathe. Because I didn't want to be the reason you were afraid to walk to your car. That is not your decision to make, she says quietly. I know. I am a grown woman who has been navigating frightening things since before you knew I existed. She keeps her voice even, not because she isn't angry, but because her anger is precise and she wants it to land precisely. What I cannot navigate is someone deciding what I'm strong enough to hear. That is not protection, Taemin. That is control. I need you to understand the difference. He is very still. I understand the difference, he says. And then, because something in him has apparently decided that honesty costs less than the alternative. I was afraid, not of them, of being the source of your fear. A breath. It was wrong. I'm sorry. She pulls the chair to its position, sits, opens the book. Tell me everything from now on, she says. Every update, every piece of information. I choose what I do with it. Agreed. Agreed, he says. She finds her page. She reads, but her voice carries something underneath it now. Not fear exactly. More like a woman who knows the ground has shifted and is choosing to stand on it anyway. A woman who has just decided that being here has a cost and is paying it with her eyes open. He hears the difference. She can tell by the way he closes his eyes and listens harder, like a man memorizing something he is afraid of losing. She notices it on day 20. Black. Expensive but anonymous, the kind of car that is designed to be forgotten. It is parked across from the hospital's north entrance when she arrives at 6:50 a.m., and it is still there when she leaves at 8:15 p.m., and she is almost certain it is the same car because of a small scratch above the rear left wheel well that catches the parking structure light at a specific angle. She doesn't say anything. She tells herself she is not certain. She tells herself New York has 1,000 black cars and she is seeing patterns because Mr. Kwan said surveillance and now she is looking for it everywhere. She tells herself this is not something to bring to Taemin because he is still healing and she does not want to be the reason he sets back days of recovery getting agitated over something she cannot confirm. She tells herself all of this. On day 21 the car is there again. On day 22 she changes her exit route. Leaves through the east wing, doubles back through the parking structure from the opposite direction. She notes the time, notes whether the car repositions. She is being methodical. She is gathering information before she acts on it, which is exactly what she tells her patients to do with symptoms they are not sure about. She is fine. She is completely fine. On day 23, she walks into room 14, sits in her chair, opens to page 212 and begins to read. And Tameen is watching her with more focus than usual, the kind of focus that is not about the words. "You're different," he says. "I'm exactly the same. You came in the east exit." She looks up slowly. "My men noted it," he says quietly. "You always use the north entrance. 3 consecutive days, east exit." His eyes are dark and very steady on her face. "Tell me." She sets the book on her knee, looks at him directly. "There's a car," she says. "Black. Scratch above the rear left wheel well. North entrance lot. 3 days straight." She watches his jaw tighten by exactly 1 degree, which she has learned is the equivalent of another man slamming a fist on a table. "Before you say anything, I am not frightened. I am being strategic. I changed my route. I have been paying attention. I came to work every single day because I made a choice about being here, and 1 car does not change my choices." He is very still. "Vanessa, I'm telling you now because you should have the information, not because I need you to fix it." She holds his gaze without flinching. "I handled it. I just wanted you to know." The room is quiet. Something moves through Tameen's expression that she has not seen before. Not the almost smile. Not the careful warmth he has been allowing himself in small degrees over the past 2 weeks. Something older and deeper and more undone. A man recognizing something he did not expect to find in a hospital room, in a nurse who reads to unconscious people, in a woman who notices a scratch above a wheel well and reroutes herself quietly and says, "I handled it," with the same calm she uses to read Zora Neale Hurston. He says something in Korean. "Lo." A single phrase. "What does that mean?" she asks. He looks at her for a moment. "It means," he says carefully, "that I have never in my life wanted to be well as badly as I want to be well right now." She understands what he is saying. "Not medically. Get some rest," she says, and her voice is softer than she intends. She finds page 212. She reads, and outside in the hallway, Mr. Kwan receives 3 rapid instructions through an earpiece. The black car is gone from the lot within 40 minutes. Taemin Han closes his eyes and listens to her voice with his hands finally unclenched. He gets stronger in increments. Day 25, he sits up unassisted. Day 27, he stands, causing 3 men in the hallway to exhale as one. Day 28, he walks to the window and stands looking at the city with an expression that isn't longing exactly. More like a general taking inventory of a battlefield he has to return to. On day 29, she arrives at 7 and there is a cup of tea waiting. Poured from a small thermos his men have procured. Barley tea, roasted and warm, in a ceramic cup. She picks it up, breathes in the smell of it, smoky, warm, ancient. "My grandmother made it every morning," Taemin says. "I find it," he considers the right word, steadying. She takes a sip, sets the cup down, looks at him. "My grandmother makes sweet potato pie on the first Sunday of every month," she says. "I know you know that." That shadow of something crosses his face. The not-quite smile that has been getting slightly more real each day. "I heard," he says. "You heard a lot." "Yes." She opens the book, glances at him. He is watching with the focused attention of a man who has been waiting for exactly this. "We don't have to finish it," she says. "You're awake now." "Vanessa." "What?" "Please read." She reads. On day 30, she walks into room 14, and there is a woman on a tablet screen propped against his water pitcher. Silver-streaked hair pulled back severely. Posture that suggests she has never once in her life slouched. Speaking in rapid Korean with the authority of someone who did not negotiate her position in the family hierarchy. She simply occupied it immovably from birth. Vanessa starts to back out. "Wait." Taemin shifts, speaks to the screen in Korean. Then, "Halmianam. There is someone I want you to meet." His grandmother looks at Vanessa. Vanessa looks back. The old woman speaks. Taemin translates without expression. She says, "You look like a woman with sense." "Tell her thank you," Vanessa says. He translates. His grandmother responds. He translates again. "She wants to know why a woman with sense spends her evenings reading to someone like me." Vanessa considers this genuinely. Tell her I ask myself that regularly, she says. A pause. Then from the screen, sharp, short, real. Tamin's grandmother laughing. Tamin looks at Vanessa with that expression. The one that lives somewhere between wonder and gravity. Like a man watching something he had quietly given up expecting. On day 32, it happens. The parking garage beneath the hospital. 10:47 p.m. Vanessa is walking to her car after a double shift, keys in hand. Thoughts still inside room 14 in the particular way her thoughts have been gravitating there for weeks. The man steps out from between two vehicles. Wrong shoes, dark jacket, hands not in pockets, which is how you know it isn't casual. Nurse Carter, he says. Her blood goes cold and then immediately, underneath the cold, something steadier rises. The part of her that has been moving through frightening things her entire life and has never once stopped moving. You have the wrong person, she says. Her voice does not shake. We just need you to come with us, he says. Have a conversation. About Mr. Han. I'm Mr. Han's nurse. I don't have information you'd find. That's not why you're interesting to us. He takes one step forward. And then several things happen at once. The section lights flood on simultaneously. 3 of Tamin's men materialize from positions she hadn't registered, because they are very good at being invisible until they decide not to be. Mr. Kwan is among them, and the careful politeness is entirely absent from his face. The man in the dark jacket goes very still. And behind Vanessa, close, present, real in a way that means he has been here longer than she knew. A voice. You're in the wrong garage, Tamin says quietly. She turns. He is not in a hospital gown. He is dressed dark, immaculate. Standing 8 feet behind her with the stillness of a man who has not moved and will not need to. He looks nothing like the person in the hospital bed. He looks exactly like the person in those photographs. The one whose name makes rooms go quiet. The man in the jacket looks at Tamin for a long moment. Then he leaves. Vanessa watches him go. Her heart is doing something aggressive behind her sternum, but her hands are steady and she holds on to that. Her hands are steady. She handled the car on day 20. She has been handling things her entire life. She is fine. She turns to Tamin. You knew, she says. We received information an hour ago that they were moving tonight. I should have called you immediately. Yes, she says. You should have. Vanessa. You made a choice about my information. Her voice is controlled, but it has an edge he hasn't heard before. Low, clear, exact. You decided I would be better not knowing, and you managed me. Again. She looks at him. After day 15. After you agreed. He is quiet. And then, I was afraid. She blinks. Not of them. He holds her gaze with everything open in it. Of you being frightened. Of being the source of your fear. A breath. I know that is not an excuse. I know it is my discomfort I was protecting, not you. And I'm sorry. The garage is silent around them. Vanessa looks at him for a long moment. Okay, she says. Okay. I'm not a person who needs the last word when someone tells the truth. She looks at him steadily. But Tamin, if you do that one more time, if you stand in front of me and agree to give me information and then decide in a quiet moment that you know better, I won't. I'm not finished. He closes his mouth. If you do that one more time, she says, I will walk away, not because of the danger, not because of who you are or what your world looks like, because I cannot build anything real with someone who edits the truth to protect my feelings. I have had enough of that in my life to last me several lifetimes. She holds his gaze. Do you understand me? Yes, he says. No defense. No negotiation. Just the plain word. Good. She breathes. Now tell me everything. The actual plan. All the options. Everything. He tells her. Standing in a parking garage at 11 p.m. Still not fully recovered. His voice low and precise, he tells her all of it. The organization. The people responsible. The plan to dismantle the parts that created the threat. The months it will take. The risks that remain in the interim. She listens to every word. When he finishes, she is quiet for a moment. I'm not staying because I need your protection, she says. I'm staying because I'm choosing to be in the same orbit as someone doing something right. Those are different things. I know the difference, he says quietly. In the dark, she says. You heard me talk about my mother, about why I became a nurse. Yes. You heard me say I was done making choices from fear. Yes. His voice drops. I thought about that every time I was afraid I wasn't coming back. I thought, if she can choose from strength in a system that costs her daily, then I had no reasonable excuse not to. The garage is very quiet. That's a lot, she says. Yes. I wasn't talking to you. I know. And something unlocks on his face. The real smile, small and new and entirely hers. I listened anyway. She looks at him for a long moment. Then she holds out her hand. Not a nurse and patient gesture. A human one. Deliberate, chosen from strength and not fear. He looks at it the way he looks at everything important, like a man who wants to get it right. Then he takes it, and his hand around hers is warm and present and certain. Let's go back inside, she says. You're supposed to be in bed. I'm aware. You're also supposed to be healing, not standing in parking garages. I'm healing faster than expected. I'm your nurse. I'll decide that. Yes, he says. And the almost smile becomes the real one again. You will. 3 weeks into his recovery, she almost walks away. It isn't the danger. She has made her peace with the danger the way people do when they have decided the destination is worth the path. It isn't the men in hallways or the security arrangements or the calls Mr. Kwan fields with a lowered voice. It's a photograph. Seoul. 6 months before the shooting. Taemin at a gala and beside him, pressed close, his hand at the small of her back. A woman who belongs entirely in that world. Korean. Elegant. The kind of beauty assembled for exactly these rooms. And the way Taemin looks at the camera has nothing of what Vanessa has seen in room 14. Nothing of what has been building in the careful space between 2 chairs over 30-something days. She stares at the photograph for a long time. Then she goes to work. She checks room 14 at appropriate intervals. She is professional and warm and present, and she does not bring the book. He notices by noon. You're different today, he says. I'm exactly the same. He doesn't push, which is almost worse. She is ready for him to push, and she has her response prepared, and his patience dismantles it completely. At the end of her shift, she comes back with her coat already on. He looks at the coat. Sit down, he says. I have to. Vanessa, please sit down. She sits. She does not take the coat off. He looks at her with the expression that has learned itself on his face over these weeks, open in a way she suspects very few people have ever been allowed to see. Tell me, he says. She shows him the photograph on her phone, sets it on the bed between them without explanation. He looks at it. Her name is Soyeon, he says. Our families have had a business relationship for 15 years. 8 months ago there was a conversation about whether we might formalize it. He meets Vanessa's eyes. I said no. Why? Because I had no interest in a marriage of convenience. Because there was no one I wanted to build a life with. He looks at the photograph and then back at her. That was before 23 nights of someone talking to me like I was worth saving. Vanessa looks at her hands. I'm not asking you to compete with anything, Taemin says quietly. I'm asking you to tell me when something frightens you instead of putting your coat on. I wasn't frightened, she says. I was preparing. For this to be something I talked myself into. For the thing that made it make sense to not be real. She meets his eyes. I do that. I find the exit before I need it, so I'm not caught off guard. I spent 23 days dying, he says, and the words are plain and quiet and absolute. And the thing that kept me fighting to come back was a voice that didn't know it was saving someone. He looks at her with everything settled and true on his face. I have no exit strategy for you. I don't want one. She takes off her coat, sets it over the back of the chair. Okay, she says. Okay. I'm not a person who needs the last word when someone tells the truth, she says. And she watches him recognize his own words in her mouth and watches the almost smile become a real one. Small, careful, completely, entirely hers. The book, he says. I didn't bring it. Go get it. You're very demanding for someone with an 4 in his arm. Vanessa. I'm going. She calls her grandmother that night. Dottie Carter. 81 years old. Retired schoolteacher. The only person alive who can communicate a full paragraph of opinion through a single exhale and who picks up on the second ring because she treats missed calls as small abandonments. You sound different, Dottie says before Vanessa finishes saying hello. I'm fine, Grandma. Different isn't bad. Different is interesting. The particular silence of a woman who taught 7th grade for 38 years and can therefore wait out anyone. Is it the man? Vanessa closes her eyes. You watch too much news. Baby, I'm 81. What else am I doing? The creak of her good chair. Tell me about him. Not what the news says. What you say. So she does. She talks for 20 minutes. She talks about the coma and the reading and the whisper on day 23 and the barley tea and the grandmother on the screen who laughed at exactly the right moment and the parking garage and the photograph and the coat she took back off. And Dottie listens with the kind of listening that has weight to it, the kind you can feel through a phone. You know what your grandfather said when we first met? Dottie says finally. He said, you're the kind of woman a man should be better for knowing. I told him that sounded like a lot of pressure. What did he say? Not for me. A breath. I'm not telling you what to do, Vanessa, but there's a thing that happens between people that doesn't ask for your logic's permission. And when it's real, you know it's real because it makes you want to be more of yourself, not less. She pauses. Does he make you feel like more? Vanessa thinks about being handed all the options and trusted to choose. She thinks about a man sitting in the chair across from her, choosing her level, her ground, her terms. She thinks about the garage and his hand and the way he looked at her holding out her own hand like she was something he wanted to get right. Yes, she says. Then bring him to church when this is over, Dottie says. Tell him to wear something nice. The corner piece. I'll decide about the corner piece when I see him. He is discharged on a Tuesday. His last morning, she arrives at 7. The suit is back. Dark gray, immaculate, all the architecture of the man in the photographs. But his hair is still slightly too long, still curling at the temple, and that belongs to her. He is holding her book. I finished it, he says. I underlined something. You wrote in my book. Look at it. She opens it. The underline is near the end. Janie pulling in the horizon like a great fish net, draping it over her shoulder, coming home to herself. She looks up. She stopped waiting for the horizon, he says. She went and got it. He looks at Vanessa with everything quiet and certain. I'm learning to do that. It is harder than it sounds for someone who has spent 20 years managing outcomes instead of wanting them. She closes the book. My grandmother wants you to come to church, she says. And she's making a pie. Non-negotiable terms. Yes, he says. No hesitation. You didn't ask when. It doesn't matter when. She holds out her hand. Deliberate. Chosen. He takes it like something he wants to get right. If you manage my information again, she starts. I'll tell you the truth, he says. Immediate. Like a vow made once and meant forever. Good. She squeezes once. Let's go. For months later, the situation is mostly resolved. The men responsible are accounted for. The shadow portions of Han Industries are being dismantled through channels involving Tamin's lawyers and one carefully selected prosecutor, in agreements Vanessa has an honest general picture of and has chosen not to examine at granular level, because there are things you trust a person with and things you trust a process with, and she has learned the difference. On the first Sunday of the month, she brings him to her grandmother's house. Dottie Carter opens the door and looks at Tamin Han for a long, unhurried moment. She is 5'2". He is 6'1". She looks at him like height is genuinely irrelevant information. Then her eyes drop to his feet. He has wiped them on the mat outside before she said a word. Something in her face adjusts. Come in, she says. At the table, Dottie asks him about his family. His mother, spoken of with grief that is very old and very carefully kept. His grandmother in Seoul, who called him 3 times the week he woke up, furious and relieved in equal measure. His father and the inheritance. She asks about this directly, the way she would ask a student to show their work, and he answers with the plain honesty of someone who has decided that truth costs less than the alternative. Not performing repentance. Not minimizing. Just the plain shape of it laid on the table. Dottie listens to all of it. When the pie comes out, she cuts him the corner piece. He looks at the slice. Looks at Vanessa. She gives him the smallest headshake. I'll explain later. And he nods and takes it and eats it. and Dottie watches him from across the table with the expression Vanessa has only ever seen her use for things she has decided are permanent. Later, on the porch, while Vanessa is inside with the dishes, Dottie stands beside Tameen and looks at her yard. She built herself back up from some very hard years, Dottie says conversationally. Before she got to the woman you know, there was a lot of ground she had to take back. I know, Tameen says. Do you? She told me. When she didn't know I was listening. Dottie looks at him sideways for a long moment. Then you already understand, she says. What you're holding. Yes, ma'am, he says. I don't take it lightly. A pause that has weight in it. Good, Dottie says. You can come back next month. It is the highest honor she gives anyone. Now it is a Sunday evening. Her apartment. Light going amber and slow. The smell of barley tea. Tameen keeps a canister in her kitchen now, which arrived gradually and without announcement, the way things that are meant to stay tend to, mixing with whatever she is cooking. The ordinary miracle of two people who fought very hard to be in the same room simply being in the same room. She is on the couch with a new book. She reads aloud without thinking about it, the habit having settled into the architecture of her daily life like something that was always meant to be there, waiting for the right person to read to. He is beside her. Working, there is always something, calls and documents and the constant undertow of a legitimate empire that does not stop requiring attention, but present in the way he is present, which is completely. She reads. The words move through the room like light. She turns a page. His hand comes over and turns the next one before she gets there. She stops, looks at him. He is looking at her, and what is in his face is complete. Whatever was building for 4 months, layer by careful layer, the way feeling builds in people who have learned that vulnerability is expensive and must be spent wisely, is complete now. Fully, finally, completely. In the dream, he says quietly. When I couldn't see you yet, there was a moment where the voice started to go, and I was, a breath. I was more afraid of losing the voice than of not waking up. That's when you knew, she says. Before I could see you. Before I knew your name. His eyes don't move from hers. I knew I needed to find you. Vanessa smiles. Slow. Full. The real one she does not give everyone. You didn't have to find me, she says. I was right there. Yes. And the last thing holding in him releases. Completely, finally, like a man setting down something heavy he has carried for a very long time. You were. She reaches over and turns the next page herself. Settles back against his shoulder. He stays exactly where he is. His hand finds hers in the small space between them. Unhurried, certain, the way people reach for things they know without question are real. Outside the city continues to be the city. Somewhere there are things that require attention. There are always things that require attention. But here, in this room, in this amber Sunday light, in the quiet that belongs entirely to them, the machines are steady. Everything else is too. If the story gave you everything, share it right now. Send it to your group chat. Send it to that one friend sitting alone tonight who needs to believe that real things still find you. Leave me a comment with your single favorite moment from this entire story. The whisper. The car on day 20. Grandma Dottie and the corner piece. The page turn at the end. Tell me. I am reading every comment. Every single one. And if you are new here, subscribe and turn on every notification. There are more people in this world whose stories deserve to be told. More love found in impossible places. More proof that the right voice can pull someone back from the dark. I write these for you. Every single one. See you in the next story.